Bernardo, I'd like to ask you, what is human vocation and what is the origin of the term and of the concept behind it?
Well, we all know the word vocation, but you usually use it in the common sense of when a girl or a boy is finishing his studies and he doesn't know, well, if he wants to go, or he or she knows if he or she wants to be an engineer, a doctor, or whatever. And, well, we normally say, well, it's because he doesn't have the information. And I think it's half of the truth. I think the real question is that he or she doesn't know what is the real call, because that's the word, the meaning of vocation. I mean, the thing is that we all need a global idea of vocation, which means which is our call, I mean, which is our project of life. So human vocation, even if it's related also with our professional vocation, our professional calling, that's the word vocation in Latin, it has to do with which is my project of life. And sometimes when we are mature, we think, well, but I know exactly what I want. It hasn't to do exactly with what one wants. It has to do with a sense of life, something deeper. And vocation has to do with the calling of the inner self. Jung, for example, said, well, that in a play of words in German, between Bestimmung and Stimme, he said, well, the vocation is the voice of the inner man, it's of the inner self. And I think that it has to do with the wisdom of East and West, with the universal wisdom, because in every wisdom of the world, in a way, even if with other, of course, with other terminology, they work in the vocation, which means which is the bearing, the orientation of your life. The thing is that how can we discover this vocation? That's another issue. But just the concept of human vocation, and we call it human because it has to do with, not only because it has to do with man or woman, it has to do with a human being, but because it's essential to a human being. And it's related with the old idea of know yourself. Know yourself, take care of yourself. And that's, I think, which we are lacking of that. In our times, we don't care of ourselves. We care of our ego, of our external things. But we don't know that even a self or an inner being lies inside. And that's the voice which we must hear. It's the old idea of the daimon, in Greek, which is this profound spirit which is governing, which has to do with the real bearing of our life. So that's the idea. In one word, I think it's universal, even if in different cultures may formulate this idea in different ways, and there are different ways of developing this concept. But human vocation, it's in this way unique to each being, but at the same time, it would be, if we accept this hypothesis, a universal concept.
And in your own personal life, how did you develop this concept of human vocation?
Well, when I was very young, when I was a child, I found that the elders, in general, they were not satisfied with their lives. I mean, their lives were, in a way, and our lives, in a way, they still are, but I mean, they didn't even realize that. They lived like in fragments, that maybe, well, sometimes they liked their professions, but I mean, they were separated. There was no real profound project of life, and they didn't even ask about the meaning of life. So well, that's why I studied philosophy, psychology, Oriental studies, etc. And all these studies had to do with my search. I said, well, in a way, I think that we must look, we must understand our own self and try to develop it. But I found, unfortunately, that at the university, even if I studied a lot and I appreciate what I've studied, in general, philosophy is understood more as an abstract discipline. Psychology, no, well, not deep psychology, perhaps, but it's not perhaps the psychology more developed or more influential in the world, etc. So, in a way, I found that it was important to work to develop a theory, perhaps to recover what it was already known in ancient times, to try to bring it to present time. It was done also by many other great thinkers and by Jung and etc. of course, and also to practice it, and then to see if I can share it with other people. That's, I think, the profound idea of what education means. Education is the Latin word may mean to drag somebody, but the real sense is to help, like Socrates did, no, in his system, to help the other found what it's inside, the truth which is inside. Sharing this knowledge helps the other to found his own way. It's not telling the other what he has to do, it's sharing knowledge from the past in a contemporary way so that the other can, well, try to, in a way, work in his own vocation.
Very well. So how can it be developed, human vocation? Is there like a practice, a course, a way?
I think that it's impossible to think in recipes, because you cannot tell somebody, well, you know your vocation is this one, you must do this and that, no, like an pre-established and fixed program. It will be artificial and contrary to the idea of human vocation, which is in a way unique. Even if it's universal, it's unique to each person, it's singular. So I think what we can share is some resources which are universal, which you can find in any tradition. Of course, there are multiple variations, but I think there are 4 types of resources. One is the theory or the texts. I mean, by texts I mean text has to do with textile, no? In a way, no? It's like a thread, no? The thread in not only words but also images and music from the past, which were like the maps that you can find when you read the Bhagavad Gita, for example, the Tao Te Ching, or Hermetic texts, or the Bible. Or Plato, etc. There are different texts which were there's the maps which help other people, but which also reflect the way or the human vocation of different persons in different times. Which the idea is that reading accordingly in a symbolic key these texts will help you develop your own vocation. They are inspiring. They are like mirrors of your inner self. If you take them literally, you are lost. That's fundamentalist. If you take it symbolic, I mean, it will awaken or help awaken your inner voice. That's the idea. That's one of the resources. The second resource is the practical. The resource, I mean, the exercises, the meditation, observation. Well, some work. You can work with the body, of course. Dreams. Dreams tell us so many things. Imagination. I mean, it's all those psychic, just to synthesize in one word, those practices which work with your psyche and which try to connect the ego with the self, let's say, or with the soul. And of course, these practices normally it's very important, the silence, hearing, no? Trying to look inside or trying to hear inside, because one of the hypotheses on human vocation, or the concept, is that what happens inside has to do with what happens outside. So the calling is in outside and inside at the same time. No? Outside has a correspondence in the inside, and the other way around. So that's the second resource. And the third is the other. No? The community, I call it the community of dialogue and silence. No? It's the big community, but also the small community, the intimate relationship with a friend, with a group of friends, which when you are capable, we are capable of trying to connect with a dialogue heart by heart, no, heart to heart, no, and not only intellectually, and trying to make silence and trying to recreate what happens to the other in myself, no, what in all the times they call it mimesis, or the participative relationship. Well, you can understand much more. No? There's something which the other has a message for you, no? And or of course the other way around. It's a society of friends. No? It's a very old and very profound idea, but we don't have time. I mean, in modern times, we were always in a hurry, no? So we don't get the time to talk, no? To make silence, to be together, and to know that there's something inspiring in the other for you and the other way around. That's the third resource. And the fourth is the old and very controversial idea of the master, no? Because Krishnamurti, and he was right in a way, was very worried, because if you follow the master, you don't follow yourself. And in a way it's true, but the true idea of the master is not to follow the master blindly, but it's to found the master in yourself. You can find it in the good St. Augustine works, for example, the Magistro. You find it everywhere. In India, of course. No? The idea of the master, the guru, is not the outside guru. The outside guru, the Guru Deva, no? It's the one you can find in your inside. So those are the resources, but of course the important thing is that every mean can be used correctly or incorrectly, right? No, that's famous Taoist proverb which says the right man with the wrong mean works in the right way, in the right way, while the wrong man with the right mean works in the wrong way. I mean, the important thing is to be sincere. Right doesn't mean to be perfect, you know, because we all have shadows and strange things inside to work with, which are also, by a way, they are a calling. Because something negative is also a call, something to work. Mm-hmm. So the right man is a person who is committed to this inside and outside search. And I think there's a lot to do with this.
Definitely. And one last question. You created this foundation, Human Vocation, and one central activity there is the course, the formative course in Human Vocation. Could you explain what is it you do in this course?
In this course, we try to share the theories of the past with, well, of course, it's, there are so many texts and so many images and so much music and things to share, but with what we can, we share also some practices. We try to, sometimes to make some community relationships, but, all these resources are used in our formation, but always take into account that it must be a free process for the one who comes to our foundation. We don't give or render any doctrine. We don't feel we have the light of the truth. We only share hand in hand with the others, with the pupils, with students, but also with professors, as far as we can, all the knowledge we can, just to inspire the vocation of other people. And we are delighted to share this with other institutions like Pacifica and other persons who are in the world working on this. Because we must think that, in a way, of course, the world has many problems, and there's a lot of disharmony in the world, and if we don't try to share as far as we can this kind of knowledge all over the world, we must be partners in this sense, a sense of partnership. So that's why we call this program the Rose of the Winds. The Rose of the Winds is a project which has to do with well, with the connection of the north, the south, the east and the west, all the cultures and religions and persons have something to tell us. There are different modes and ways of developing vocation, and that has to do with the idea of pacification. Our world is struggling, there are a lot of negative things, but I think the world will not change if we don't try to change ourselves. I mean, the first things we do, Jung said it many times, is we try to change the other. We are incapable of changing, well, our inside. But that's the challenge, to share knowledge which will pacify, which will develop our potentialities. That will be the education we all need, but we can't do it. It's impossible for a foundation, for a university. We must try to make some networking in the good sense of the word, trying to share what we know in this direction, in this idea. That's the idea of the rose of the winds. You know, this compass which unites the winds, like the spirit which comes from any side of the world. And we hope, well, many persons, many institutions will join us in this idea of trying to, well, to pacify and to work in this global human vocation idea. We can find in Teilhard de Chardin, this Jesuit who called, I think this, he said, these disjointed forces in the world, in the planet, they are also a call, the call of a global human vocation. But this global, extraordinary human vocation must begin inside, and each one must try to, well, be, in a good sense, an example. Like Gandhi said, be yourself the change you want to see in the world. Thank you very much.